In this video, I will be talking all about my Jupiter transiting through my ninth house. So Jupiter transited through my ninth from around October 27th, 2022 through May 16th, 2023. I am using a whole signs chart. I know I sometimes use Placidus, but I'm finding that I prefer whole signs. And so, I always specify if I'm going to be looking at a different chart. But for this, I'm looking at whole signs. Jupiter is the benefic. It's the bigger benefic. He's like the Santa Claus of the zodiac. And wherever he goes, we kind of want to know because that's where we're going to see greater expansion, more luck, maybe more ease. And, of course, it depends on our specific charts and what other aspects and planets are dancing with Jupiter, if you will. But overall, we like where Jupiter goes, and there's room for a lot of growth and just luck, I'll say. So the other thing is Jupiter likes to be in the ninth because he's at home. The ninth house is a Sagittarius house. Jupiter is, a Sagittarius energy. And so they mesh really well. And so when I think of Jupiter or the ninth house, I'm thinking of foreign travel, foreign people, places, things, foreign anything. I'm thinking of the legal system, spirituality, religion, philosophical beliefs, higher education like a master's or a PhD, mentors, guides. I think elders are also in this house too. So these are all the things I'm thinking about. So for me, what transpired was the first thing that I noticed with this transit was that we had a foreign move, and it was unexpected. We were not expecting to have to move here or have the opportunity to move here, should I say, because we did choose it ultimately. So in July of 2022, we moved from Oklahoma to Hawaii. And I think I talk about this in another video. But anyways, so in July of 2022, we moved to Hawaii. To us, this was foreign, right? I know that many people think foreign, it has to be like a different country, but it doesn't always have to be. It was very foreign to us. And it felt foreign when we got here, to be honest. So that was the first thing. Over that time period, I do believe that Chiron played a huge role in my experience of Jupiter in the ninth because Chiron is the wounded healer, and Chiron is like pushing on a wound. It's a sensitivity, if you will. And so I think I had Chiron kind of poking on some wounds, but Jupiter was there making it maybe not as horrendous as it needed to be. So, my experience wasn't just rainbows and daisies and magic, as some of my Jupiter transits have been, to be honest. But this one was a little different. So when we got here, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. I was depressed. I felt isolated. I didn't like the weather. Maybe there's even some culture shock in there. I was also struggling with some major health stuff, and you can't see it in this image. Pluto is in the seventh, but Pluto had been dancing around the seventh and the sixth, but Pluto has been in my sixth and was, in my sixth for the last, 20 years or whatever. He just stepped out for a moment, but very close to that sixth house still. And I think shortly after that went back into the sixth. But anyways, so that was also adding to my story. And, that was really hard. And so I think that made it really hard for me to enjoy it here when you're not feeling well. It doesn't really matter where you are, right? So that kind of colored my experience. I had a existential crisis in January of 2023, kind of a dark night of the soul that lasted for a couple months. And it was triggered by a medical professional because I was seeing so many people about the things I was going through. And, ultimately it was a good thing. And I mean, during it, no. But it made me kind of face my fears of death. And I think Jupiter was very supportive in that because I basically, like, the fear was death, maybe abandonment. Like, I'm not going to get into my therapy here, but there was a lot going on here. And I did utilize a therapist to help me. And Jupiter ultimately helped me heal that, I believe, and maybe made it easier than it needed to, or I don't want to say easier because it was still hard. Um, but I did some deep diving there and really looked at it was like an existential crisis is the best way to describe it, but it was also like really looking at my life and what mattered from this wider perspective, and changing, like consciously choosing to shift my mindset. And so there was a lot of mindset work, but it didn't come easy. It wasn't like I just woke up and I was happy. I had to deal with some cobwebs first. During this time, I really loved my work. I felt I was in my calling. I realized I was in my calling, and that I might change my mind one day down the road, but that was going really well for me at this time, that I just felt really aligned with my work. And I guess you could call me a guide to the work I do. I'm a therapist, and so I felt really good in that role, and I was seeing a lot of success and progress and just alignment with my clients. And so that was the good part. So I know Jupiter can mean a mentor comes to you, or maybe you're in that role. And so I think maybe I was that role. I did have other mentors. Did I find? I did find a new therapist who I'm still working with, who I love. She is amazing. She is not only a therapist, but she also understands, my spiritual beliefs. And so we kind of incorporate that together. And so she's been that new mentor to me who's been really helpful, extremely helpful for me. So what's next? So after I got through all that heaviness, I was able to just love life. And interestingly, my health started to get better. So I think they are definitely attached, but I started to just feel more content, happier, and we started to have more foreign travel plans. Now, I will say, so yeah, up until May 16th, 2023, when Jupiter left, we hadn't taken any foreign trips, but we had been planning them. So we had planned, again, we didn't even book the flights. I think we didn't book the flights till June or July. But we had planned a bunch of trips. So we had planned to go to California. We had planned to go to one of the other Hawaiian islands, which we did. And then we planned a huge foreign trip that included Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia. And these are places that I, like the Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia were places that I never really cared to go. I mean, nothing against those countries. I think they were wonderful. But it just wasn't on my list of, like, if I never saw them, I'd be fine. It just, we are a little closer to them. And so we thought, why not? If we're ever going to do this, it's going to be cheaper and easier from where we are. So we have done all those trips, but again, we were in the planning phases during this. We didn't actually take the trip. But yes, since then we have taken the trips, and they were all absolutely wonderful. I know that the ninth house can often talk about elders, and that's something kind of new to me that I've learned. And I have a really good relationship with a mentor who's like a family member to me, and he's like a spiritual guide, and he was like my rock through this. But also my mom and I we just connected. She came out and visited me about 4 times in 2023. Well, visited us, me and my husband, and she's coming out again, like in a month here, because she loves Hawaii. But our relationship it's amazing, and we didn't always have that, and so I'm really grateful for that. And maybe that south node in the fourth, right? Because as you can see in the picture, I had that south node in the fourth at the same time. I think maybe I was letting go of a lot of stuff from my history with her and my own traumas and dramas, and it's a really nice relationship now. So maybe Jupiter helped with that, like, because Jupiter can be elders, and I mean, she's not that old, but she's an elder to me, and she's wise to me, and I look up to her. But now that Jupiter's out and I can reflect back, I definitely think Chiron was pushing me to change my mindset, because for a lot of, I don't want to say for a lot of it, but for part of that transit, I was in victim mentality mode. Like I was living from like a poverty consciousness, like poor me, why me. I was just really disempowered. And by the end of the transit, I felt like very empowered. And part of that might be Pluto in the sixth. Part again, you can't see it in this photo, but Pluto was in the sixth. He just retrograded out. And I think a lot of that was Jupiter just really helping me shift my mindset. And yeah, so I think that kind of covers it. So yeah, just some foreign travel trips, lots of mind shift stuff. Um, I think I forgot to add, I also had a lot of different changes in my belief systems around health and food and nutrition. And I'm not going to get into those details. We're all so different. We all have different beliefs. But for me, in order to feel better, I had to change my beliefs about food. And again, maybe that's from that Pluto angle. I don't know that everyone who has Jupiter in the ninth is going to have anything to do with food in their experience. But that was the mind shift for me, the mind shift change, I'll say. So overall, I left that transit better than I went into it, and I do think Chiron colored that experience for me. I do believe that if Chiron had not been there, it would have been a very different experience. So I don't want anyone to freak out with Jupiter going through the ninth that, oh my God, it's going to be awful. Because it really wasn't when I look back. Of course, when you're in these things, it feels awful. But when you look back, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I get why I needed to go through that. And so lots of healing, lots of growth. And yeah, so I hope that that was helpful. If anyone else has some Jupiter transiting through their ninth stories to share, I'd love to hear. I didn't really get much in terms of higher education. I like I did a lot of like smaller things, and I'm working on certifications, but nothing really like higher than what I already have. But I'd love to hear from you guys and any other stories you have. So thank you for taking the time to listen, and stay tuned for another video.